What's up, everyone? In my last video, I mentioned that I heard a grinding noise in the rear of my vehicle. I suspected it may have been the brakes. It looked like it was the brakes whenever I put it up on the lift. And I just received the replacement parts today, and I'm getting ready to install those now on my Infiniti FX35. So it was the left rear brake that was going bad, and thank goodness I just got these parts today. Take a look at this. It's been getting really bad over the last 2 days. Look at all this dust on this wheel. This was cleaned less than 5 days ago. Just for a comparison, take a look at a clean wheel. Even though it's not really that clean, you can still see a big difference. This has been sounding really bad the last day or two, like I said. So hopefully I can get these new brakes installed today. Car parts and big brake kits are really expensive, so in today's video, I'm going to show you how I'm saving a ton of money on this big brake kit, not only to fix my vehicle, but also improve the performance. For this upgrade, I got these massive, nearly 14-inch rotors, and these 2-piston calipers. These I sourced based off the 370Z Sports model. So they are the same brakes used on the 350Zs or any of the Nissan Infiniti Sports models. In this year range, my Infiniti FX35 is a 2011, so I sourced a 2011 350Z parts. Big brake kits can cost you several thousands of dollars, so in this case what I did is I went to my local auto parts store and ordered these rotors, calipers, and new brake pads. These rotors might not be quite as high spec as some other sports rotors out there, but these calipers are typically remanufactured OEM parts, so you're saving tons of money with the upgraded performance. Now, I did this same setup on the front when I originally bought this vehicle, and in this case I actually used a DBA rotor. DBA rotors, from all my research, are supposed to be some of the best rotors out there, but in this case, since this is an older vehicle and I don't run this vehicle real hard, I decided to save the money and just use these rotors from the auto parts store. Another thing is, whenever I did this job on the front brakes, I contacted Z1 Motorsports. They mentioned for this build that you needed some longer banjo bolts, so I've got those here, as well as my Motul Dot 5.1 brake fluid. So, quick story, I previously had a G35 many years ago, and one night I was out running several high-speed runs, and I actually had a brake failure where I was hard on the brakes, getting ready to make a turn, and the brake pedal just went soft. It went right to the floor. Luckily, I did not have to turn, and I continued going straight and got the car slowed down. I've heard of stories like these on other 350Cs and 370Zs where they've had brake failure on the track from overheating brakes, and the most common cause of that is your brake fluid. Most cars come standard with DOT 3 or DOT 4 brake fluid, which has a lower boiling point than the DOT 5. Plus, the DOT 5.1 can be used in DOT 3 or DOT 4 brake vehicles. You will also need extra fluid when you're doing this job because you're taking up more volume, being that the calipers are bigger. So be sure to order extra brake fluid when you do this job. I'll leave links to this brake fluid down in the description below, as well as a list of these parts. Alright guys, I got the caliper off, having a little trouble getting this rotor off. I wasn't able to get this off, so I just soaked this again in PB Blaster. I'm going to let this set for a while. I'm also going to try to get a longer bolt to run into here, and worst case, might have to get out some heat to try to get this unseized, but I just wanted to show you what I'm seeing here. So as you can see on this rotor, this is where the pad was eating into the rotor, and it just destroyed the inside of this rotor. And here is the pad. As you can see, there's no pad left. It's just the metal backing, and it's completely destroyed. So, you know, my philosophy, like a lot of guys that build cars, anytime something breaks on your car, it's always a good time to replace it with better parts. Hoping this brake kit's gonna work. I just took the rotor and lined it up to the other. There is a difference in diameter on the hub portion of the rotor. This area right here is a slightly smaller diameter on this rotor than it is on the rotors on my car. So like I said, I hope that's gonna work. But anyway, I'm gonna let this set for a little while and go get some more stuff to try to get this rotor off. All right, I finally got this rotor broke loose. I let this set overnight with penetrating oil. I went back and sprayed around the studs as well as around the hub with PB Blaster. I did that a couple times. I had to really hammer on this thing to get this to come loose. I tried hammering on this surface here between the studs, but this rotor is trash, so I resorted to hammering here on the outside. It took a lot of pounding to finally break this thing loose, but now that I got it loose, I'm gonna take it off and see if I can put the new rotor on. All right guys, I ran into a problem when installing the 370Z rotors on this FX35. Basically, the diameter of the hub on the 370Z was about 3/4 inch smaller than the ones that came off here. And I contacted Z1 Motorsports. They said that they didn't have anything for this. They didn't have a solution. They said that they knew that guys had done it, but they didn't know what parts they had used. So I had to get creative. I went over to AutoZone's website where they actually give the dimensions of this hub and center, as well as the overall rotor, the thickness of the rotor, and the overall thickness from the hub to the back of the rotor. And the closest thing I could find was I went to a Infiniti Q50 Sport. So this is the Q50 Sports rear brakes, which has the same rotor diameter of 350 millimeters as the 370Z, and the hub itself is 202 millimeters versus the FX35 200 millimeters. So it's about 2 millimeters bigger. In the automotive world, 2 millimeters can mean a lot, but I believe in this case, since this is the e-brake and there is some adjustability to it, I should be able to open that up a little bit, so we still have proper functionality of the emergency brake. The overall rotor depth from the hat to the back of the rotor is the same as the FX35, which was also the same on the 370Z. However, the FX35 had a much narrower rotor, which the 350Z had a couple millimeter wider rotor, and these match those on the 350Z, which should work for these 350Z calipers. So the next thing there is to do is I need to either cut or remove the brake dust shield. In order to remove it, you got to remove the center hub and bearings. So knowing that that's a lot of work, that's not something I want to do. So I'm actually going to try and cut off the brake shield here right along where this sticks out so that this rotor can set properly. Alright guys, I got the brake dust shield trimmed back. The rotor fits good, but one other problem that I'm noticing here is when I go to put on the caliper, the brake dust shield also interferes with that, so I'm going to have to trim that back as well. So I now got the parking brake adjusted and dialed in. What I did is I put the rotor on here, and I had expanded this parking brake, but whenever I turned it, I could hear a little bit of rubbing. So I brought this back in just a little bit, just about a quarter turn, once I didn't hear any more rubbing. And so now that is set up, I can go ahead and get the rotor on, and then I can put on the caliper with the brake pads. Alright guys, I'm running into a big problem here putting these bolts back in to hold the caliper on. These bolts threaded pretty well into the caliper, but it's getting really tight. I had to put a good bit of torque on these just to turn them a couple more turns, and it's nowhere near seated yet. As you can see, it's still about a quarter inch out. I'm not sure what's going on with that. But I found this old bolt that is the same thread pattern, and so as you can see, it goes in here nice and easy. But whenever you get this bolt all the way in and down to the last couple threads, it just gets real tight. And I was trying just to torque these on down on the car, but it's getting so tight that I'm worried that I may either break the bolt or might be stripping the threads. So I'm gonna have to take these back out to see what's going on. On the old caliper, it just goes right on through. All right guys, that was a pain. So I got the bolts out of the calipers. I got the calipers off the car, and it had stripped several threads in this, and I don't understand why. Because whenever I put this on, I put these on as I normally would, or anybody should, with finger tight. I got several threads in. I even had several rotations with the wrench before it started getting tight. Then, like I said, it got very tight, and I did a couple more rotations, which I should have known better. I probably should have just stopped whenever I realized that it was getting that tight. Honestly, at first, I wasn't even looking how close the bolt was being to seated, but after a couple turns of it getting really tight and then looking to see that the bolt wasn't nearly seated, I realized there was an issue, so I stopped last night. So I had to go get a tap and die set today and just clean up all these threads, but now that's taken care of, we can go ahead and put the brakes on the car. Alright guys, just got one side done. Just checking it out, seeing how it feels. There's a few things that just seemed a little odd on this job, so I wanted to make sure that this side's working properly before I tear into the other side. Well, I made it down the driveway, which is really steep, and I had to pump the brakes a couple times. When I first pulled out of the garage, it felt kind of soft, but it braked fine just coming down the driveway. So just going down the road here to check things out now. And ooh, that felt soft. Like I said in the video the other day, when I did the front, the brake pedal got softer. I think I said that. But yeah, whenever I did the front brakes, because there was more volume, you're moving more fluid through the calipers, the brake pedal was definitely softer than it had been previously, but the stopping power was much better, especially from higher speeds. So I was comfortable with that. I adjusted to that. I kind of expected the same this time, since you are moving more pistons which means you'll be moving more volume, take a little more pedal travel to get everything slowed down and engaged. The pedal is definitely softer now, which I don't like, but the brakes work really good. And this is why you never want to change just one side. Watch when I hit the brake hard. It really pulls the car hard to the left. So yeah, definitely have a lot more stopping power now. But definitely need to get the other rotor on. So I'm gonna take that back to the house and start on that now. Guys, I got this side buttoned up here pretty much. I just got to put the wheel back on, but one thing I did want to point out is when I was putting the bolts into this caliper, the threads started getting tight like they did on the other side. So I was a little bit thrown off by that, but I pulled the bolts back out, and really what I saw was the bolts were really pretty clean overall, very clean for the most part, what you would expect on a 10-year-old vehicle. But there was just a bit of dirt and corrosion on the threads, which was gumming up in the aluminum housing. So I pulled those off and I ran the die set down the threads on that, and then put a little bit of anti-seize on there, and everything went together so much more smoothly. So anyway, that's gonna wrap it up on this side. Like I said, I'm gonna throw the tire on the car real quick, and then I'm gonna go take a test drive. All right, guys, I went for another test drive yesterday evening. The brake pedal was still very soft, actually. It would go all the way pretty much down to the floor whenever I went to hit the brakes if I haven't been on them for a minute or two. So I'd have to pump the brakes to get a little pressure in the line, which indicates that there's a little air in the system. So I'm gonna do another round of bleeding these brakes right now, and then we'll go for another drive and see how it does then. All right, guys, I don't know why, but it took a ton of pumping on the vacuum pump to try to get these brakes bled, but I think I finally got it done. So now let's go for a ride. Several different braking tests here. Brake pads obviously got to get seated in, but yeah, overall the pedal travel is a little more, like I said previously, but it seems to be working pretty well now, and the brakes do really feel good under kind of my normal driving conditions, and under hard braking there's definitely a lot more stopping power. I am feeling a couple little oddities. One hard brake, I got another pull to the left, and I'm not sure if that's just that the maybe the one brake has been on there a little bit longer, is a little more seated in, or maybe if it is actually just the car following the road a little more than what I initially thought on that last hard brake test, because I did it in the same spot and I got the exact same reaction pretty much. But anyway, yeah, I think things are feeling really good now overall. I still wouldn't mind maybe doing some braided steel brake lines or something like that, just to get the pedal a little more firm. But overall, definitely pretty pleased with this. So now I am going to run to the store and run some errands to get some more things for other projects. But anyway, guys, you know what to do. Be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to hit subscribe. And until next time, stay tuned.